Scorpio.
While I may be a 16-bit ghost from Super Mario World, I still have owned almost every iteration of the Xbox since the original. Now I want Microsoft to succeed, not just because I have an Xbox, not just because competition is vital, but also because it's an American company in an industry long dominated by Japan. But what is the Scorpio? The Scorpio is 4K. To quote Kevin Gamble, Group Program Director of the Xbox Core platform, "To me, 4K means a very specific set of things. It's a lot more than delivering the 8 million plus pixels to the screen while playing games. It's about delivering those pixels with 4K assets so they look great. It's about delivering those pixels with HDR and wide color gamut fidelity. It's about delivering those pixels with no loss of frame rate compared to the 1080p version of that title. That's super important to us. Spatial audio adds to the immersive experience as well. To truly land that gameplay experience, it's not just about what you see, but what you hear." Except real gaming isn't just about what you see and hear, it's about what you're playing. You'll notice he was careful not to promise that the games will be any more fun.
What's fun?
The novelty of incredible graphics lasts about 10 minutes. If the game isn't fun or made well or polished, you're going to notice right at about that 11-minute mark, and if you play and subsequently keep that game title anyway, it's probably just because you helped crowdfund that garbage and GameStop offered you $8. What the hell? This isn't the actual reveal. They were just showing Digital Foundry a demo, basically, which I think is cool. I like Digital Foundry and the investigative work they do, especially at such a time for gaming journalism, which is now basically a rundown of the top-voted Reddit posts and tweets from yesterday, mixed with some forced inclusion, with a creamy whipped topping of mostly pointless virtue signaling, and "most gamers aren't fucking nerds, losers."
Now check out these specs.
Yeah, fuck you guys. Just like everything else, gaming journalism is getting increasingly decentralized, and I personally think that's good for everyone. Instead of a proper reveal, we got some specs.
Nice. 8 custom x86 cores, 6 teraflop GPU, wow, 12 gigabytes GDDR5 RAM, 326 gigabytes per second memory bandwidth, and a vapor chamber cooling system with a 1 terabyte hard drive.
So what you're saying is the games are gonna look better.
Only $500 or $600 for better graphics.
This reveal could have been a great time to shift that conversation back to Xbox, because I bet my fellow Xbox fans are getting a little sick of being beaten by the PS4, now by the Nintendo Switch. In fact, I know just how bad most of them hate losing. Does Microsoft know its fans? I'm going out on a day one patched limb here, but I bet most of us don't understand what these specs actually mean, like the long-reaching consequences of these engineering choices. That's why we haven't built our own computers. They could have just put an empty plastic shell in a photo and gotten everyone who's not a complete geek just a little bit more excited. Or show us a new special controller that costs even more than the Elite controller. We're not that picky. I hope at E3 they bring a live Scorpion on stage. But honestly, I know that the actual name that they come up with for this new system is probably going to be ridiculous, like the Xbox X180 or the Xbox Z, at which point I'll be asking, why? But to me, a teraflop sounds like a bad thing. Like, if a movie flops, it's a bad thing. When this console comes out, I'm going to have a ball making puns using teraflop. I'm about to get a head start. So now my question becomes, who is the target audience for the Xbox Scorpio? We know who it isn't. It's not casual players who don't care about graphics. It's not mobile fans or retro fans who also don't care about graphics and who want portability, which the Xbox probably won't offer because Microsoft loves giant ugly boxes. Lifelong Halo fans on whose backs Microsoft basically built the Xbox are probably not going to buy it because most of them hated Halo 5, and Halo 6 probably won't return to the series' roots. People who already have a PS4 are probably not going to buy it because why would they? It's not going to win over Nintendo fans who have a brand new console, many of whom already own an Xbox, PC, or PlayStation 4. So really, what is the point? What can an Xbox do that a PC can't? And if there are no exclusive games for the Xbox, why get a Scorpio at all? I mean, why do I even have an Xbox One? I kind of wonder sometimes. Like, I enjoy playing it. I like playing it for first-person shooters, but let's be realistic. A first-person shooter works best on a 20 to 30-inch screen. You don't want to play Halo on a 65-inch 4K television. You're going to break your neck trying to look from left to right. You won't be able to see as much. First-person shooters, which are like half the games for the Xbox, basically, they don't work well on huge TVs. So I don't get it. And they demoed this to Digital Foundry with a racing game with Forza, but Forza is a very well-built game that doesn't tax resources anyway. It's well programmed. It looks good on every console it's ever been on. And a racing game, even though it shows the speed of a game, you can't really stop and check out those trees for leaves. You know what I mean? If you're gonna go to the point of creating a console just to add detail to games that already exist, it's got to enhance the gameplay. It can't just polish things up. You can't just polish a turd, okay? The frame rate is not what I think needs improvement in Xbox One games. I think just the core functionality needs improvement. The way that Microsoft treats its intellectual properties needs improvement.
What the hell are you doing?
Now all of these AAA games have day one updates and patches, and a lot of them never work to their expected potential ever. So thank you, Xbox. In fact, I don't think I've ever sat down for more than 2 hours and played Xbox without having to restart the build of whatever game I'm playing at least once. Why is that a thing? That sounds like a PC problem. It probably has nothing to do with the console itself. It probably has to do with the programming, which is another thing. Just because your console has awesome processing power doesn't mean games aren't going to run like shit on it. You remember Tetris Ultimate, which famously had terrible frame rate issues on the PS4? You think that was taxing the system, or just poorly programmed? More power does not necessarily equal better or more fun games.
But bigger budgets.
Look at all of these AAA games coming out with no polish, like Andromeda. Do you guys think that more teraflops are going to make their facial animations more convincing? Unlikely. In fact, it's probably going to highlight those problems. Which brings me to my next point. The Xbox Scorpio is not kind to developers. Yes, this is about the Xbox Scorpio, but I'm talking philosophy, the future of console generations and games. Where is this taking us? Is this making games better, or just raising the bar of entry for developers? $60 for a game is already low compared to how much games cost to produce. Do I really want to pay $100 per game in 5 years for every game available for my console?
What if they suck?
Will every new game need a subscription-based model like Destiny, where you need to keep paying for season passes to enjoy the same content as your friends? While smug PlayStation players play better console exclusives and run raids in Destiny you don't have access to yet? Sucks being an Xbox gamer. It sounds like the Scorpio isn't trying to solve any of these problems. It's just going to make everything more expensive for everybody, from the developer to the publisher to the consumer. Japanese developers think the Xbox is stupid, and indie developers are just going to avoid it. How much is a dev kit going to be for this Xbox Scorpio? It's probably going to be like $1,000 or more. It's going to be incredibly expensive. The dev kits for the Nintendo Switch are $450, I heard.
But boo, graphics.
So here's the part where you stop and reminisce about all your favorite games and how none of them were in 4K. So why are they really pushing power so hard? Is it just a setup for VR? Because I think that is very unwise. VR has not taken off. Reaction has been mixed at best, with no loud vocal supporters of VR or any VR titles except for Resident Evil. VR headsets look like they were made in the 80s, and Microsoft doesn't even have a first-party headset, so you'd have to pay probably an extra $500 for something else that's probably just going to end up sitting next to the Kinect gathering dust. Unless you have a pair for your PC already, in which case, why the f*** are you buying an Xbox? No, I think Microsoft is missing the point here. Games are supposed to be fun and accessible. Gaming's not a dick measuring contest. It's not about having the best graphics. It's about appealing to the most people, and if the only language they can use to describe these improvements are in teraflops or hertz, most people aren't going to understand that. It's such a superficial way of looking at something that we're all so passionate about. Yeah, I know this is the most powerful console ever, but I really feel like they're selling us the same product over and over again of decreasing value. Is this really such a huge jump that my brain's going to explode? I'm probably going to have to see side-by-side screenshots to be able to tell the difference. And ultimately, it's like popcorn at the movie theater. You don't need it to enjoy the movie. It just slightly improves the experience a little bit if the popcorn's good. But if it's stale and crappy, it just ends up on the floor. No harm, no foul. You didn't come to that movie theater for the popcorn anyway. You came because the movie entertained you. You came buckets
of popcorn.
So again, I ask you, who is the target audience of the Xbox Scorpio? Core gamers with disposable income? That is a tiny subset of people who play games. I think the only people who are going to consider this console a must-have are very serious game streamers, and their livelihoods are completely dependent upon publishers, who can change their mind basically any second about letting you stream their games. The only other people who will buy the Scorpio must A. care about specs but not be tech-savvy enough to see the obviously smarter decision to buy an upgradable PC, B. don't already own a PS4 Pro or a gaming PC on par with the Scorpio, C. have $500 to $600 laying around for a half-step upgrade that promises no exclusives but instead will just play the same stale games you already have, quote-unquote, better? Look, I hate being right all the time, but I think the Scorpio is going to tear a flop. And after that, as Mr. Spawnwave on YouTube put it, where do these companies go after this?
More pixels.